Okay, well, I think just in an effort to stay really close to our time estimate, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, as I said, welcome senior parents and guardians. We're excited to have you. This is, as you might notice, an extraordinary year for our seniors. We're all kind of in the process of grieving, celebrating, anticipating, wondering, all these kinds of things at once. Tonight, we're kind of hoping to answer some questions, provide some information, and focus on the positive for our seniors this year. Tonight, we are going to focus on 5 main topics. We're going to quickly go over some calendar updates. We're going to very briefly talk about keeping adolescent brain development in mind as we support our children. Jen Marston is going to talk a little bit about career and college readiness for your student. Then we're going to share the results of a recent school climate survey, just so you can get a little bit of a closer firsthand sense of what students are saying about distance learning and how they're experiencing it. We're going to then talk a little bit about character strengths and end up with some question and answer time for all of you. We're going to ask you to keep your mics muted. At the end, we'll welcome you to unmute and ask questions live. In the meantime, please enter any of your questions or thoughts into our chat, and we'll be kind of monitoring the chat so we can kind of keep track of what you're thinking. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Maurice.
Good evening, everyone. And so, counseling team consists of Carrie Phipps for freshmen, Diane Berry, A through HA, 10th through 12th grade, Brianna Trevino, HE through N, 10th through 12th grade, and myself, Maurice Montero, O through Z, 10th through 12th grade. Brianna wasn't able to join us tonight, but Diane and I are here, along with Jen Marsden, who's in charge of career and college and the Aspire coordinator. Karen Baratz, who wasn't able to join us this evening, is the office manager and the scholarship coordinator. We also have Benjamin Bell, our principal of Ashland High School. And basically the school counseling department handles 3 domains. First one is academic, second one is social emotional, and third is college and career.
Hi there. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jen Marsden. I'm the College and Career Specialist and Aspire Coordinator. So I'm just going to go through a few calendar updates that you should all have on your radar. So coming up December 31st is the deadline for yearbook photo submissions. You've also should all have received in the mail a letter. I hear the paper is actually purple that you need to fill out and send back to let the school know how your student wants their name written on their diploma. Did I get that right, Diane? Got the details. And so if you cannot locate that letter, definitely get in touch with the main office and they will make sure you get the information that you need. So that needs to be mailed back or dropped by the school. It can just be put in that drop box, I think, out by the bus ramp. So we've got, after winter break, a few more weeks until the end of the semester. So finals week is going to be February 2nd through 4th. So finals is still a little up in the air in terms of what it's going to look like this year with distance learning. So your students know to keep their ears and eyes open to be in touch with their teachers, and they'll be in touch with parents as well to let you know what that week will look like. For seniors coming up, we've been working on scholarship applications. And so those are the deadlines for the various scholarship, the main routes of scholarships we have. The OSAC scholarship application has a final deadline of March 1st and an early bird deadline of February 15th. And then our local scholarship process, the deadline for those are February 22nd. We actually had a scholarship information night for parents at the beginning of the month, and we should be getting a video of that posted soon on the AHS YouTube page if anyone's interested in learning more about that. Then we've got spring break coming up in March, and usually we have a scholarship night in person where all our seniors who receive scholarships are acknowledged. It's a really exciting night. Hoping maybe we'll get to do that in person this year. We didn't last spring, so keep your eyes open for that. And then graduation will be June 11th this year. And then if you have other students, the last day of school for the younger grades will be June 18th.
Okay, I'm going to transition now to just a quick refresher on how unique and wonderful the adolescent brain is. And the reason that we decided to kind of include this information is because we know that during this time when our children are just about to launch into young adulthood, they still need a lot of guidance and a lot of support. And we want you as parents and guardians to stay connected and stay involved as much as possible. So when we look at this slide, probably a lot of you are familiar with this image by now. But we can see that prefrontal cortex, that's the side of the brain there, the front kind of tip of it, develops much later. It matures, or not develops, but matures much later. When we look at our young women and men, that prefrontal cortex is still in the kind of the greenish blue zone, which means that those executive functions, which are critical for just navigating life decisions and schoolwork and jobs and relationships, are still not matured. And there's a few examples of what those executive functions are there on the right. You know, insight, judgment, impulse control, planning, strategizing, flexibility, problem solving. So we do want parents to continue to kind of prefrontal cortex their kids during this time. Just out of curiosity, how many of you know when young men's prefrontal cortex matures? Why don't you take a guess, or it might not be a guess, you might know spot on, and enter that in the chat. And you might guess, since I asked about young men, that women mature at a slightly different age. And so if you know that.
We've got a few 25s, a 26, a 25, 25 to 30. Ballparking it there, Carl. 24.
This is wonderful. Okay, when we first gave our presentation to sophomore parents, they were way guessing under. Then our juniors got a little more accurate, and senior parents are right on. Senior parents are aware. So our young women's prefrontal cortex matures on average about 23. Young men on average about 25. And most of us can kind of connect this because insurance rates for young men are reduced by about half at 25. So we know that insurance companies are concerned about rates of accident and decision-making and restraint. And they think that happens about 25, which it does. So our point being, our students still need our support and guidance. At the same time, all sorts of wonderful things are happening as this prefrontal cortex matures. What students are doing a lot of at this time is kind of pruning off. That means it's dying off. All those neuronal connections that aren't being used are literally dying. Those that are being used are becoming incredibly strong. And this process happens during adolescence at an amazingly fast rate. So the really exciting thing about this time of life for your adolescent is that they are at the height of learning. Again, think about this in terms of what your child is spending a lot of time doing outside of the school day. If they are doing something creative, wonderful. If they're spending 10 hours on video games, maybe we want to kind of shore that in. They're going to get really good at video games, but they're losing time growing other kinds of connections. So again, it's a time where students need our help and support, but are also learning extremely quickly. So there's lots of opportunity, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, we're going to move on to a little overview of career and college readiness.
Okay, that's me. So a few things to am I muted? No. Okay. So a few things to remember. Senioritis is real. This year is really strange. I can only imagine what's going on. I mean, I know from talking to a lot of seniors what's going on. But senioritis combined with distance learning, COVID, everything they have on their plates, trying to plan for a future that feels really weird and uncertain to them. They're dealing with a lot. So it's important every senior year to remember that, you know, attendance is still important. Grades are still important. A lot of parents and students who think, okay, I'm not going to a four-year school. I'm just wanting to graduate, but community college is really an option. It's really important to remember that they need to keep their GPA above a 2.5 to qualify for the Oregon Promise Grant, which is our state's effort to make community college affordable for all students. Another opportunity a lot of our seniors have is dual credit. So a lot of seniors are in statistics, are in politics and literature, are in literature through sociology, a lot of classes where they can get college credit. So if your student is in one of those classes or another class that qualifies for dual credit, pay attention to that. Ask them about the deadlines for statistics. They get 1 quarter college credit for the full year of statistics. I think they register winter quarter for that. That math credit for students, that's the one class I go into every year and really encourage every student to sign up for the dual credit, because it might be the last math class they ever have to take if they're a kid who doesn't like math. A lot of four-year schools have general ed math credits that students need to do. And I also really want to point out to parents and students that any student who qualifies for free and reduced lunch can get reduced tuition at SOU for the dual credit. And so if you've never signed up or didn't sign up this year to qualify for free and reduced lunch because your student's not eating lunch on campus or accessing our meals programs, that is a really good reason to sign up for free and reduced lunch. And it's really easy to do. So you can contact me to do that, or the main office, but it's a huge benefit to seniors to be signed up for free and reduced lunch if they qualify, because they can apply to colleges for free, get the reduced tuition, send their SAT or ACT score. So lots of benefits to that. So another thing that a lot of our seniors are still doing, which is great, is really exploring their interests. They're not sure what they want to study in college or what career path really interests them. We have a great platform score, which I'm going to talk about on the next slide. But you know, even though our lives are a little curtailed, we do have students who are out working. We do have volunteer opportunities for students. Jamie Hayden, our leadership teacher, I think just put together a whole resource list of organizations and different places that our students can volunteer and kind of do some things out in the community. So that's something to keep an eye out. One thing I really want to touch on is our CCR class, College and Career Readiness. Every senior is connected with a CCR class, whether a straight CCR or if they're an AP Econ, they're getting CCR as part of their AP Econ. So we've been doing a ton of college and career readiness in that class this fall. So students have learned about FAFSA, the free application for federal aid. They've started their applications. Hopefully they're encouraging you all to do the parent part of the application. They've been looking at scholarship applications, starting to apply for scholarships. They're doing a lot of financial literacy in CCR, and also a lot of career readiness with working on resumes, working on cover letters, interviewing skills. So there's been a really lot of rich content in CCR. And one of the things that we brought into CCR the last couple of weeks is we had all the seniors do post-secondary plans survey to get a sense of what they're thinking for after high school, also their interests, any concerns they have, any way that the counseling office team could be supportive of them. And then we have the counselors come into every class and do one-on-one individual check-ins with each of the students in breakout rooms. So I'm going to turn it over to Diane and Maurice for a couple of minutes to let you know what they've been doing with that.
Hey, Jen, real quick, there was a question in the chat. How do we access the FAFSA that our students started in CCR? They're having a tough time figuring that out.
Okay, good question. So I will put the links to the FAFSA in the chat in a minute. I just put the links to our financial aid and scholarship page, which I'm going to go into in a minute. So your students started the FAFSA. To work on their FAFSA, you also have to make an FSAID. That's your electronic signature. Your student already has one. So you get into your student's FAFSA by your student logging in with their personal FSAID. If you try to log in with your own FSAID, FAFSA will think you want to make your own FAFSA application. So your student then can show you, they should have done their whole first part, all the student information, and stopped at the parent section, where then parent can jump on and then enter all the parent information, social security number, that type of thing. The FAFSA is great now that it has an IRS data retrieval tool, and the parent uses their FSAID to link with the IRS and then auto-populate the FAFSA with the parent's financial information from 2019. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, but I'll put my email in the chat later too, so that to contact me, I can send you all that FAFSA information. And also I work one-on-one with a lot of parents and students actually just doing their FAFSA. We can screen share. It's really easy to do the FAFSA if you're struggling with it, if you have someone who knows what each of the questions means, and as you're moving through it, to just get it done. So I'm happy to set up a Zoom time with any parent and student together, or parent alone just to do the parent part. So use me for that. Okay.
Maurice, you want to share?
Yeah, as far as surveys and post-secondary plans for meeting with students, I hear an echo. Am I okay here? Because I'm getting some feedback on my end. Okay, thanks. No, we've met one-on-one with students in their CCR classes, and it's been a joy. It really has. Most of the interaction I've had with kids have been on email or through email. Once we get through the initial topics that they listed concerning hobbies, interests, what their post-secondary plans are, where they are in the process as far as applications and financial aid. Once we get past those initial questions and answers, a lot of students are just willing to chat, and that's been nice. Just connect on a more intimate level than email. So it's been kind of a joy meeting with your children, and I've had a good time just getting to know them a little better. Diane?
Well, likewise, I just wanted to let folks know we are meeting with every single senior, all the counselors, and we're kind of going through their kind of how they're doing right now in their classes, and they're reviewing their post-secondary plans. If we haven't met with your student by the end of the break, it just means that either we didn't quite get through all of our students during that period, or they were absent, and we will. We're going to make sure we make up every student that we have missed. And that's about it. All right. Jen, did you want to just give just a quick overview of what is covered in CCR? Did you? I don't know. Okay, we're going to move on because we have a time. All right. Jen, you're muted.
I did that for feedback. So yeah, I thought I covered most of what we do in CCR. A lot of
you did, and I think most parents are aware of it. So we'll keep our pace going here.
Okay, and I did stick in the chat the link to the FSAID for parents who have not gotten an FSAID yet. That's the first step Really important to remember to use your name as it appears on your social security card. If you don't match your social security number with your name, your FSA ID will not work. And just to give a plug too, we did do a financial aid 101 night, and that video is also on the AHS YouTube channel. So if all this FAFSA just sounds like Greek to you and you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm happy to walk you through it, but you can also check out that YouTube link and get that financial aid 101. Okay, SCORE. This is the amazing career and college search planning platform that we adopted last year at AHS. SCORE is a Gaelic word that means transition. And it's an amazing tool where students can explore careers, programs of study at colleges, search for best fit colleges based on what they're looking for in post-secondary education, and also even compare financial aid packages at different schools. So your student last year made an account, and I'm going to talk about some of the assessments they did on the next slide. To log into their SCORE account, they just go to the SCORE website, and we encourage them all to use their same username or email address that they use for all their AHS accounts, their SharePoint accounts, and passwords so that they wouldn't forget it. So if your student's still really into learning about careers that might interest them or colleges, SCORE is a great resource. And one of the things that makes it such a great resource is that it has what's called the U Science assessment. And last year we had your students as juniors take the U Science assessment, which identifies their unique personal aptitudes. It's what's called an aptitude assessment and interest inventory. I was skeptical at first, but we all, the whole counseling staff took the assessment, and I was pretty surprised at how it pegged me pretty accurately. I'm going to use it if I ever have to apply for another job. There's all sorts of information to describe yourself based on your aptitudes that you can use in a cover letter, in a resume to describe your strengths. It's really a cool tool. I won't go on and on about it. I can. So ask your student if you haven't talk about their U Science assessment and their aptitudes. It's a really cool thing for them to get to access. Okay, so the nitty-gritty of senior year. So now is the time for students who are planning to apply to some type of program for after high school, whether that's a community college, a four-year university, a vocational program, a gap year program, some kind of apprenticeship, Job Corps. Now's the time for students to start working on and completing applications. A lot of four-year universities, their deadlines are coming up fast. January 1st, January 15th for University of Oregon, February 1st for Portland State, and I think SOU, OSU. A lot of students miss these deadlines because they see a priority deadline for these colleges and then that you can apply after, what's called rolling admissions. The problem with applying after the priority deadlines is you will not get the automatic merit aid and some other scholarships that students might qualify for, need-based aid, if they do not apply by the priority deadline. Today we had an SOU admissions on the spot. We usually do it in person. It was Zoom. We had 10 students show up, get admitted to SOU. Was pretty awesome. Some of them are going to get pretty hefty merit scholarships because it's done on a straight GPA rubric. So lots of exciting things happening with our students. So FAFSA, really make a plug for it. Now is the time to get it done. A little over half of our seniors and their parents have completed FAFSAs. You really want to have the FAFSA done by the time your student is applying to college, if not by the day the application is due, soon after. Same with the CSS profile, which is another financial aid application that a lot of private schools use. Some of our parents think that there's no reason for them to complete the FAFSA because their student will not qualify for federal aid. It's really important, especially senior year when your student is first applying to college, for all students to submit a completed FAFSA to the schools they're applying to. Some colleges will not give a student merit aid if they do not have a FAFSA on file for them. So if they qualify for merit aid based on their GPA or athletics or whatever is of merit for that student, they need to have a FAFSA in or they will not get that money. So if you're a parent who's thinking that you weren't going to do the FAFSA and you need more encouragement to get it done, contact me. I'm happy to talk to you about it. It really is a really easy application at this point. If you did FAFSA 20 years ago or 30 years ago, or even 10 years ago with another child, it's much, much easier now, especially with the IRS data retrieval tool. And another reason to do FAFSA, the Oregon Promise, which I mentioned earlier, the grant to make community college affordable for all students. One of the requirements to be eligible is a student has to complete a FAFSA. And they have to put a community college on it. Doesn't have to be the one they end up going to, an Oregon community college. Up until last year, the Oregon Promise had no income cap. So it didn't matter if your family made $1 million a year or $300,000 a year, the state would still give your student $3,500 to go to a community college. So last year they did put an income cap in, an EFC of $22,000. It's a pretty high EFC. That means your family's making over $100,000 a year if you're a family of 4. So really it's important to get the FAFSA done. And even if your student doesn't think they're going to a community college next year, I encourage every single one of our students to complete the Oregon Promise application. It's a 5-minute application. Most of our students did it in CCR, and to complete the FAFSA, because as we know, I always encourage our students to keep all their options open. And if there was any year to make it obvious that that's really a good strategy, this has been the year. So we had a lot of seniors last year who got into 4-year private schools who decided to defer, and they ended up using their Oregon Promise funds to take online community college classes. And so they were really glad they had submitted the Oregon Promise application and the FAFSA on time. Okay, scholarship applications, we already talked a little bit about, and it's not really easy to travel now, but if your student is still kind of exploring schools, not sure where they want to go, any kind of programs, a lot of these schools have incredible virtual tours on their websites, information sessions. They've really gone above and beyond now during COVID. So there really are ways to explore a lot of schools. And then spring, we will be there sooner than we all think. And so as you get closer to the end of the year, just keep track of if your student has any school fees or dues, need to pass all those classes. Credit retrieval, a number of our seniors are enrolled in credit retrieval, have some classes that they're trying to retrieve that credit, some from last year with COVID and the transition to online learning. So important to get all those credits. And then spring is the time to really finalize post-high school plans. I can't stress enough, as your students start getting their financial aid packages from colleges, you really need to go over them and understand them. They're not meant to be deceptive, but they're confusing. And I'm happy to sit down with any parent, any student, and go over financial aid packages. I do it every year. And actually last spring, it was really easy to do because of Zoom. We don't even have to find a time where everyone can gather at school. And once again, maintain good attendance, good grades, finish strong. And I'm looking at that photo and really hoping we're going to get to be out there this June. Lucky we have our graduation outdoors. That's in our favor, you know, might happen, I'm hoping. Although we had a really great graduation parade last year. That was fun. Kind of think we should add that to the celebration every year.
Okay, wow, Jen, you're such a hard act to follow. Such a sea and wealth of knowledge. Honestly, folks, I just moved here from Southern Nevada, and I can't tire of saying this. The district I worked at before, people would pay big money to get information that Jen offers for free. So I'd never mind plugging you in, okay? Because you're just great to talk to about this stuff. So moving on, school climate survey we gave to students about a little over a month ago. We wanted to gauge how students were feeling with the online environment. If you look at the pie chart, it took about, well, actually above the pie chart, it took just under half an hour to complete. You can see the responses were on average, when we go through these slides, you'll see they're on average about 700 students. And the pie chart pretty much illustrates grade breakdown, who the most responses were from per grade level. 10th graders were the highest. Student stress level, to gauge that, on a scale from 1 being no stress to 5 extreme stress, how stressful is distance learning online this year? You can see how it broke down. It's basically a classic bell curve. Most kids fell in the middle between feeling pretty stressed and no stress at all, with either end being the fewer numbers. So most kids fell in the average range. Okay, gauging mental and social health on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 is struggling every day just to get out of bed, so pretty extreme. 5 is doing amazing. Same thing, basic bell curve, but in the pie chart form. Most kids fell in the middle. Most kids, which means about 276 students fell on average on how they felt in the stress level. The most positive thing that we received from the students, if you look at this chart, do you have a safe adult you can talk to and confide in? Most kids said yes. We found that very comforting, very positive. They had an adult figure they can go to and talk to, which is really good to know. What do you do for stress management? 709 responses. I want to go to the next slide real quick just to kind of give the parents an idea what they said. So most student responses, if you look, were easily accessible. We're in a high financial excursion. If you look, a lot of kids are just simple methods: breathe or breathing techniques, listening to music, drawing, spending time with those I love, taking photographs, playing video games, driving, going on walks, playing music, skateboarding, praying, talking about it, playing with my dogs, working, listening to music, FaceTime with friends, working on my car, embroider, working out, journal, meditate, watch movies, make lists, and hike. So once again, easily accessible activities that kids can go to, which they found helpful to reduce their stress levels. Okay, how was distance, or how has distance learning affected your physical body, overall physical health? I think this was an important question, and you'll see from the range of responses how kids are dealing with this. Okay, so good. I've been working out every day. I golf 9 hours a week. I don't think I want to compete against that kid. I'm not that good at golf, and with that much practice, he's going to beat me for sure. It stayed pretty par. Not well. I am lazier. I've gained 20 pounds, which isn't good. I'm still active. I don't go outside because I'm on the computer. I am out of shape now. It's improved. I barely exercise, so no good change. I spend way more time sitting and doing nothing. This made me realize that being active is more important than I thought it was. I work out a lot more now because I have more flexible time. So just a wide variety of activities or responses to that. I personally myself have found it's really important to balance that out even daily. I try to get out during lunch and take a walk just to get outside and get away from screen time. I think it's very important as parents to realize this and how some kids are dealing with this. So just try to maybe kind of monitor that and get some feedback from your children to how they're dealing with their stress levels and what they're doing physically to kind of compensate for that. Okay, next level or next slide. Connections during COVID. So here's the paradox of our time. Trying to be connected and feeling disconnected during the connected time. We're supposed to be wired in and supposed to increase our ability to connect with each other, but we're finding a lot of people feeling the opposite, actually disconnected. So this is kind of a curious paradox once again. So the students, we asked, can you share an idea on how we can create connections with each other socially distanced and COVID safe? And some of the responses were, we can FaceTime, there isn't a way. I hang out with friends on Discord. Distance and mass picnics, no idea. More breakout rooms and Zoom classes, basically breaking up the class sessions so they can be with each other a little more. I don't think we should. I think it's best for now that we are safe. So very conscientious student there. IDK, I don't know. Playing with them on Xbox, have cameras on during Zoom. My friends and I use a browser. This was my favorite idea. My friends and I use a browser extension called Netflix Party. We watch movies, make commentary. I think I would enjoy doing that myself, actually. So socially distanced movie night at the park, wear masks, Zoom hangouts with friends and family. So just a variety of things to do. I think it just takes a lot of creativity to overcome what we're dealing with right now. But the kids themselves have some pretty good ideas, and I'm really impressed with it.
Thank you, Maurice.
You're welcome.
So as you noticed, kids have been pretty creative in ways that they've kind of managed stress, ways that they've connected with one another. And I do want to let people know that that survey was actually taken by our students over a month ago. And as counselors, we are noticing a shift right now. We're noticing that students more and more are saying they're okay, that they've kind of accepted where we're at and they're acclimating and they're figuring it out. And it reminds me of what an adaptable species we are. We really do, with time, change for our environment and our situation. And I think some of those, again, ideas that those students kind of put forth or strategies they put forth are really wonderful to borrow from in terms of even suggesting to our own kids kind of new ideas. I'm going to be really super quick about this piece because we want to get to questions and answer, and we want to take advantage of having our principal here with us. I know there's some gathering in the chat, and we are going to try to address all of them. But we do want to really emphasize how important it is to balance listening and being present with feelings of disappointment and frustration and grief, with doing that, balancing with acknowledgement of strengths and messages to our kids that we are growing resilience right now. Resilience that is going to serve us and going to serve them for the rest of their lives in all sorts of situations. So about a week and a half ago, all of our advisory students and many of our CCR students did a quick exercise, an activity that focused on character strengths. And in a nutshell, we looked at 24 character strengths. We kind of introduced them to 24 character strengths that everybody has in some combination to some degree, and that are valued kind of globally as strengths. We asked them to kind of take a look at this chart, kind of guess where they thought they might fall in terms of their kind of core strengths versus strengths that maybe were a little less strong. And then we had them take a quick assessment. Your student may or may not have taken this. Our CCR kids didn't, not all of our CCR kids took this survey. Many of them did. The reason we're sharing this is we'd love you to ask them about it. If they didn't take it, we invite you to take it with them. One of the benefits of learning about our character strengths, it increases our self-awareness. And what we wanted to communicate to them is that when we use our character strengths in some way every day throughout the week, we feel more confident, we feel stronger in our relationships, we feel more engaged, we manage problems a little bit better. It just feels like we're living a more meaningful life. And then kind of an additional lesson to all that is that when we recognize those strengths in the people around us, we really lift them up. And right now, I know that we're all in that business of lifting each other up and kind of recognizing the real positive and how people shine around us. So again, we want to be brief with this, but we did want to let you know that this is something, this is a wonderful potential conversation around the dinner table one night. So in summary for tonight, before we get into our question and answer, we just want to remind you to notice the positive. Because of that rapidly maturing brain, our students can learn new skills as quickly. And we know that they're already, I mean, I was telling Maurice and Jen before about, I always like to share anecdotes and all sorts of students. I love some of the stories they've shared with us about what they've done. I've got students who now bake more than they've ever baked. I have a student the other day who told me that After doing nothing for 3 months, he just realized he was exhausted. So now he gets up at 7:30 every morning. He does a 20-minute run. After school, he does a 30-minute walk, and he drinks about 2 gallons of water a day, and he feels remarkably good. And I just think, wow, what an amazing, amazing lesson that young man has learned, and what a habit he has created that will, again, serve him indefinitely. Distance learning is not great, but our students, not all, we're really bulking up a lot, but some of our students, many of our students are figuring it out, and we're really proud of them. And our students have really unique and wonderful character strengths that we want to notice, especially during these times, as a balance to so much that we could notice that isn't going so well. Okay, so at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of look at the chat and kind of pull some of those questions out, try to answer as many of them as we can.
There was a general question that maybe Ben wants to address. It was, is there any chance we'll be back in school on campus this spring?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so the short answer is yes, there is a possibility. In all likelihood, it probably wouldn't mean a full return to school in terms of the way we would think of school happening in normal times. But the answer is really contingent upon local case rates within our zip code and within our county. At the end of October, the governor released new metrics for schools, which I think on the positive side provided more leeway for districts to make decisions on their own in terms of when it's safe to do that. But that's really on a continuum of kind of this color-coded continuum based on case rates in counties. And so, for example, the most kind of dangerous color on this continuum is red. And we're definitely in the red zone right now in Jackson County. So before we can talk about or really think about some kind of hybrid schedule or a modified hybrid schedule as a county, we really have to do some work in terms of getting our case rate down.
Okay, one question for Jen is, how many colleges does the average student apply to?
Jen, you're muted.
Yeah, I'll be happy when we don't have to say that anymore in person. Okay, so I put something about that in the chat, but for some students, applying to college is simple. There's 1 or 2 schools they're interested in. They wanted to go to U of O. They know their family can afford it. They know they're going to get in. It's not a big ordeal. For some students, it's applying to 5 or 6 schools. Some apply to a few more. It really depends on a student's interests and goals. The most important thing that I stress with students and parents is applying to at least one school that you know you're going to be excited about going to, that you're going to get into, and that you know is financially feasible for your family. What I put in the chat is most of our students get into the schools they applied to. Of course, there's the super competitive schools where it's always kind of a crapshoot, but most of our kids get into the schools they apply to. And what it comes down to is the financial aid package they get, and if their family feels that it makes sense for them to pay that price. So that's why I really stress the financial piece with students, net price calculators, the EFC, FAFSA forecaster, all of that. If you haven't been to any of my financial aid talks or haven't had that talk with your student, I'm happy to talk with you about it. But that's really one of the most important factors for our kids. And some of you also might have noticed Carl Pryor asked a question about the selective service and FAFSA. If you haven't come to any of the financial aid meetings and you haven't done a FAFSA yet, that is a question that as soon as a student, there's 2 gender choices on FAFSA. They haven't caught up with the rest of the world in terms of applications and choices on that. If a student selects male, they're asking a student to select what is on their birth certificate. If a student selects male, it triggers the question, have you registered for the selective service? To receive federal aid, the Pell Grant in the United States, a male student has to register for the selective service. Females, if you check female, they will not see that question. So Carl asked if it will impact any kind of financial aid or scholarships. In that regard, it would. For a student, I have students who definitely look at their student portal, their financial aid application has turned in, and they get a message, we cannot give you your financial aid package until you register with the selective service. So that's kind of the state of that.
And I think we'll go for another question for Ben.
Okay.
Ben, two questions. We want to talk about the possibility of LIPI, and also a parent asked about the incident that happened today in one of our assemblies.
Well, I'll start first with the LIPI question. LIPI is my favorite new acronym of the year. It stands for Limited In-Person Instruction, in case you're not familiar with it. But basically, it is a provision that allows schools to do kind of a very limited, focused, with small student numbers, some in-person instruction. And so we have plans in place for that. We already have students lined up for that. We have not been able to get it started yet because one of the kind of guidelines around that is that if there is any positive case in the school community before it gets started, you have to delay the start of LIPI by 14 days. And so it just so happened that right before it was actually the day before we were going to start it, there was a positive case in our school community, and that could mean a student, a staff member, just anybody in the community. And with a school community of our size, just statistically speaking, those things are going to happen, unfortunately. So we had gotten past that 14 days, and then the governor put in place the freeze, and our district decided that we want to be prudent, and while that's in effect, not start LIPI at any new sites at that point. So our plan is that when we come back from winter break in January, to hopefully be able to start our LIPI program probably towards the middle to end of the month. And in terms of the incident that happened today, I'm sure all the parents here got the email that I sent out earlier this afternoon. At this point, there's not a whole lot more I can share other than what I put in the letter. A very unfortunate incident. We had grade level kind of spirit assembly plan that by and large went very, very well, and students were well behaved, and it was really meant to be a positive incident or a positive event. And somebody in attendance used a feature that is enabled when share screen happens, and they began annotating, and that was visible to everybody. And as my letter states, a swastika and the phrase "Hail Hitler" was written on the page for everyone to see. So immediately it was erased. The students, or at least the usernames that we believe were responsible for that, were immediately removed from the Zoom meeting. And we're going forward with our investigation right now. Our tech department is involved in that. And just a very unfortunate incident, which we know caused a lot of pain for students that were in attendance, and a lot of frustration on the part of parents, and I know that. And it was really frustrating for us too as a staff, because we wanted to do something positive. I mean, after looking at some of the student data from the survey, we know that students are really hungry for connection, and we're trying to think outside the box and find some different ways to facilitate that. And, you know, this happened. So.
Ben, there's another question, and I think you've already answered this, but just about what the chances are of returning in spring.
Yeah, I mean, I would just go back to what I said before about
Yeah.
the governor's metrics. It really depends on the county case rates. There's a really useful tool. If you go on the Jackson County website, you can click on a button that talks about the local kind of COVID health metrics, and it actually breaks it down by zip code. And so one of the key metrics that we have to meet before we can even really start looking at moving down on the scale is they want to see a positive case rate less than 200 positive cases per 100,000 people. Right now in our zip code, the positive case rate is over 1,000 per 100,000 people. So we definitely have some work to do in our local area.
Okay, I'm thinking we have, it looks like most of the questions have been answered in the chat. Is there anybody else who just kind of wants to unmute and ask a live question?
Hi, Dan. Long time no see. I just specific questions about Ben and graduating that don't require everyone, but Maurice he's Ben's new counselor. Hi, Maurice. And he's been trying to email with him. And, Ben's so close, wants to graduate, is trying to get a little bit of credit retrieval and just needs some help with his specific stuff, but not that everybody else needs that. So I don't know if you could stay on a few minutes. I know it's a Wednesday evening.
Laura, Jen and I are staying on for sure. So absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anybody else have any kind of lingering questions, thoughts, suggestions? We had some really nice, constructive suggestions in a couple of our presentations from parents, just from that kind of parent and student perspective. We appreciate those.
Hi, Diane, Mary Caraba.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, I'm not on video tonight. Quick question about the selective service. I mean, they can't register until they turn 18. So if they fill out the FAFSA when they're 17 and ask if they're registered, they say no. And so are they good to go then until they turn 18 and register?
So here's when they say no, they haven't registered and they know they're not 18 because they've already put their birthday in the FAFSA. The next question is, would you like to register for the selective service? If they click yes, and they're 18 or within a few weeks or months of 18, I can't remember, it's something like that for registering to vote, it will automatically register them. If not, checking yes prompts the selective service to notify them when it is time for them to register.
What if they click no because we didn't understand that?
Well, then when he turns 18, he could get on the selective service website and register. It's easy, or he could go back into his FAFSA and change that.
Okay,
Mary, my son did exactly the same thing because we didn't really watch very carefully and we didn't have much to do with it. And the selective service will just send Michael something in the mail later on.
Okay, so he's not going to lose out on the financial.
No.
Okay, good. Just wanted to clarify that because I'm sure a lot of other kids are not 18 yet either.
Right.
Okay, so one question was, is the scholarship Zoom meeting recorded? Yes, we record everything. So, and it's all, it's either on our AHS YouTube site, and there's also links on our website. So Jen's recorded all of her nights.
Yeah, they're all up there except the scholarship one, and I'll make sure too that the Facebook people get it up there, the YouTube people.
Okay, well, I think we're done. I think happy Wednesday, happy 2 days before a winter break. We hope you all enjoy many moments of beauty and inspiration over the time that we have away. And we're looking forward to a new year that's on an upward trend. We are excited. We're ready for 2021, whatever that means.
I think we're all ready for 2020 to be over. Thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you. So Jen and I, maybe Maurice for a skosh, will just stay online and figure out if we have a few extra questions to answer or appointments to be made.
Of course I'm gonna stay. I'm not gonna abandon you. Come on.
Okay, Maurice is staying too. He's a team. I don't wanna,
No, you're good. I'm
take
good.
your whole evening, Maurice.
And just for you parents that are still here, I think Mary logged off. I go through this whole selective service issue with students very slowly and in depth. And we talk about the pros and cons and ways to be a conscientious objector, if that's what you would choose to be, if there ever were a draft again. So I just gave parents kind of the quick FAFSA edited version, but it is something we cover in more depth in CCR class and making that decision because it's a big one.
All right. Hi, Carl.
Hey, hi Diane. Hi everybody. Thank you so much for this evening. But Jen, I just wanted to kind of come back to it, I guess, really
Okay.
quickly. Have you already talked in, say, AP Econ on that about?
So
selective
in
service?
AP Econ, they did get my post-high school options 101, or financial 101. I think they were forced to come. And usually I do little extra things with AP Econ, but I think each of my presentations this year, they've come and met me in office hours and I've given them that presentation. So I'm pretty sure that all of the AP Econ students got that info. Are the boys concerned about doing that or?
No, I think probably Rena and I are more concerned.
Okay, yeah, and I mean, a lot of parents are, a lot of kids just check the box. Oh, you said I need to do it. And so, I had to go down the selective service rabbit hole a few years ago when a parent actually got really upset that I actually didn't know it was the law in this country, which I also didn't say at 18, every male, whether they go to college or want federal aid, is required by law to register for the selective service. If they don't, and this is what we go through in CCR, they can't work for the federal government. They can't get federal aid. So, and if they don't register before the age of, I think it's late 20s or early 30s, if they do decide to go to school after that, or they do decide they want to get a job with the FBI or, an embassy or the Forest Service, they won't be able to because they never registered for the selective service within that window. This has been explained to me. We kind of got dinged because we weren't telling all our students they were required by law. We got called by someone who represents the selective service. So it then became my responsibility, since I have to bring it up anyway, with FAFSA to kind of talk to students about that. The selective service on their website goes through all the ways you would not have to serve if we ever did have a draft, if you wanted to be a conscientious objector, or I can't remember all the different ways potentially, but I do talk to students about that too.
Well, I guess what I'm interested in, I think you've answered this part of it, but if the college or university or the federal government comes to them and says, hey, you haven't signed up, in order to get this, you need to sign up, they can still sign up without any penalty.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
like
right.
that student I said who, it was in his financial aid portal. Like, we can't give you your package until you go to this website and register. So it would just be something like that for them. And I'm thinking some schools probably don't catch it. I don't know. I used to, honestly, I didn't know it was the law. And I thought it was really unfair that only kids who qualified for aid needed to check the box saying I'll register for the selective service. So it kind of is an equity issue, right? Everyone by law needs to do it. You don't get to get out of it if you're wealthy. Obviously, you know, not everybody is doing it. They actually said, and if you come back to school and you want to use FAFSA, the selective service pretty much says you have to have been living under a rock in this country if you did not know it was the law that all males need to register at the age of 18. I think Oregon's kind of under a rock because I honestly did not know that. It's like, I watch regular TV, I watch sports while my husband does. I see commercials. I've never seen anything. I see lots of military ads, but nothing that is, you know, telling males you register for the selective service at 18. It's the law. So a lot of our kids and parents do not know that.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the thorough answer. And sorry if I took up a lot of time with it.
Oh, no, it's, I mean, and we cover, and then the financial aid nights, it's usually a big, you know, part of the discussion too. So. Yeah.
Laura, I'm thinking, Laura, do you want to, since you have a specific question kind of around Ben and credit retrieval, do you want to just make an appointment or?
Well,
just
Ben's been emailing with Mr. Montero and he's still confused and I'm confused. And since